What's our theory for the third week? Our theory for the third week is called the Cathartic Theory. So it's called the Cathartic Theory after, of course, catharsis. And catharsis, as it was explained in the video, what is catharsis?
It's a Greek term that's taken from medicine.
Yes?
It means like lower the high temperature on the body.
Yes.
If someone has a fever or something.
Great, right. So it's originally a medical term, yes, as you mentioned. It's the process of getting rid of extra high temperature, which is already trapped or locked in the body, right? For the purpose of getting better, of course, for the purpose of recuperation. The body cannot stand this extra high temperature, because if you keep it bottled in, if you keep it deep inside of you, this high temperature inside your body, a person is going to die, right? So it leads to death. It's very dangerous. So one way of curing a patient with fever is to help him get rid of this extra temperature. And how can you do that? How can you absorb out this extra temperature? Like using wet pads on the forehead, usually on the forehead, because the warmest place in the body is the head, definitely, right? In this way, you try to get out this extra temperature, and again, eventually the patient will get better, right? So this is the meaning of catharsis. So Aristotle borrows this term catharsis from medicine, and he applies it to literature. Again, I say literature, but at that time it was usually poetry or drama. Because we didn't have other genres in ancient classical times like the short story and the novel. These are later developments in literature. Even their dramatic works were actually poetic, written and composed in verse. So he borrows this term, Aristotle borrows this term from medicine, and he applies it to literature. How does it apply to literature? How does literature have this cathartic effect? Literature, just like, think about it like a wet pad on your forehead, on a patient's forehead. It absorbs all the negative emotions from your soul, from your heart, from your mind. So it's just like that wet pad you apply to a patient's forehead, to the forehead of a patient who's suffering from fever. Because that extra temperature is negative. It's negative because it leads to death. It destroys you. So literature has this therapeutic function. It's just like a therapy, which you place on the forehead of a patient with fever. It absorbs this extra high temperature, and then the body is healthy again, is restored to its former healthy state. Right? How? How does literature have this therapeutic function? Well, because how does it absorb? How does literature absorb these negative feelings? Because you feel them. Now, according to Aristotle, when you feel something, you get rid of it. When you feel something, the moment you feel something, you get rid of it. So, if I feel anger, if I experience anger, then my body gets rid of this anger. The best way to get rid of a feeling is to feel it. The best way to get rid of a feeling is to feel it. When you feel anger, when you experience anger, you get rid of anger. When you experience grief, you get rid of grief. When you experience fear, you get rid of fear. These are negative feelings. Now, I have an observation on that because, you see, probably you will think of this as an invitation to be angry, all right? I'm not inviting you to be angry, and Aristotle, I don't think he was inviting his audience to be angry. He wasn't saying, go ahead and get angry and break the dishes, and no, so that you're going to get rid of these negative feelings, right? No, he's not saying that. Definitely, he's not saying that. This is not an invitation to anger, to negative feelings.
He was just showing the ways that we release that anger. So he did say that this is positive or negative. So
yes. You will say, okay, if he's not inviting us to feel angry, then how can, at the same time he's saying you have to feel angry. This is a contradiction. How can you not feel angry? You say, no, I don't want you to be angry, okay? But in order to get rid of this anger inside of you, you have to feel angry. This is a contradiction, right? Are you following me? I mean, are you following the contradiction? In fact, it's a paradox rather than a contradiction. Because he's saying that you have to feel angry, but there are two ways to feel angry. There's a negative way to feel angry and a positive way to feel angry. So, if you feel angry like you slam the door and break dishes, this is a negative way of getting rid of this negative feeling. But if you watch a play like King Oedipus, if you watch a play, and he gave this example in his Poetics, Oedipus Rex, King Oedipus, as the best example of literature that has a therapeutic function, right? So if you watch a play, and this play makes you feel angry, it's okay. Because no harm is done. You're not hurting anybody. You're just sitting, watching characters on the stage. They are performing a play. And the story makes you feel angry. And then when you feel angry, it's gone. Anger, which was already inside of you before watching this play, is now all gone. It evaporated. It's no longer inside of you. You didn't break any dishes. You didn't hurt anybody. You didn't shout at anybody. It's just watching a play. So Aristotle is not saying you have to get angry and go and break something or shout at someone or hurt someone. No, all you need to do is to watch a play. And this is why this is why he disagreed with Plato. And he said, no, literature is important and useful in our lives because it helps you get rid of negative feelings without hurting anybody. Right? The Chinese have these Chinese dolls. The Chinese have this tradition, like they have dolls at home, and when they're angry at somebody, they go home and kick the doll. All right, like somebody is really angry or mad at his boss. So in front of his boss, he says, "Yeah, sure. So we're going to do this. This report sucks. It's really terrible, right? I want you to rewrite it." "Okay, sir. I'm going to rewrite it." Okay, but he's very angry, and he's bottling up this anger inside of him. But he doesn't want to, slap the boss or something, or shout at the boss. So he goes home and then starts imagining that this doll is the boss and starts kicking in it, right? I don't encourage that, of course, right? But this is just an example. This is just an example of, how to get rid of... So that doll is like literature. Okay? Right. This is the point. Literature has this function as a therapy. Some people agree, some people disagree. Plato disagreed with Aristotle, of course. Plato disagreed with Aristotle, but this is how Aristotle thinks about literature. And this is what he said in his Poetics, that literature. And probably you have noticed this, that some people, when they don't feel well, they say, if I read a book, I'll feel better. Right? Probably after reading a book, they'll feel better. Or after they don't feel okay, so they watch a movie. After watching this movie, they feel much better, right? Some people watch movies when they are angry or sad, and right after watching the movie, they feel much better. So movies are just like literature, right? The film industry is providing us with movies, and movies are just like poems and plays and novels. Many of them are based on novels, right? So they also have plot and characters and setting and themes that you can think of, and they are taught in departments of literature as well. Film criticism and films are taught, and many students write research papers comparing movies to novels. So you can consider movies or music. Some people, when they don't feel okay, they feel sad or angry or whatever, they listen to music. So music also has this function as a therapy. Everybody, you've heard of this familiar expression, music therapy, right? Music therapy. You can YouTube it. If you Google it or YouTube it, you'll find therapy music, and like 10 hours of healing music. You can find that on YouTube. 10 hours of healing, soft piano music. All right. Yeah. So music has this function as therapy, right? What else? Food can have a function like therapy. Some people, when they are mad or angry, they say when we eat, we feel better. So this is it. Some people play sports. They exercise, games. Yeah. Pardon me?
Painting. Like some people paint in order to get rid
Painting.
I did my small cancer. I paint cubism, like art. Whenever I want to get rid of
Yes. So painting. They say painting and literature are sister arts. They are sister arts. Okay. So painting, music, reading, literature, film, food. They all have this function as therapy. They heal you. They heal your spirit. They uplift your spirit. They make you feel much better. And of course, in this course, we are focusing on literature, but other forms of art have the same function, right? So the question is, suppose you want to apply Aristotle's theory, the Cathartic Theory, to a text, to a literary text, be it a novel, a play, a poem, a short story. How are you going to go about doing that? How do you apply it to a text? Well, when we try to apply like Plato's theory to a text, all what we have to do is find the source of morality, the source of ethics, the source of moral lessons. And the source of moral lessons could be a sacred text, a religious book, a guide on etiquette. It could be any source of moral lessons. And then go ahead and try to find these lessons where? In the text under question, in the text in question. Like I have a novel. I want to apply the didactic theory to this novel. I find my source of moral lessons, like, let's say, a religious book. I extract these moral lessons from this religious book, and then I try to locate them in the text, try to find them in the text. If I do that, then I am applying the didactic theory to this text. Same goes with Aristotle. What you have to do is to find the cathartic effects in this text. Like, does this text, you try to answer these questions when you are analyzing the text in the light of the cathartic theory. Does this text make me feel angry? Does this text make me feel sad? Does it make me feel scared? Because these are all negative feelings. If I feel scared, I'm getting rid of fear, and fear is a negative feeling. If I feel angry, I'm getting rid of anger inside of me, and anger is a negative feeling. If I feel sad, I'm getting rid of grief or sadness, which is inside of me. And sadness is a negative feeling. So if this text makes me feel angry, sad, scared, then this text is purifying me, because it's making me feel these negative feelings. And when I experience these negative feelings, I get rid of them. Yes, please?
I said you will release them.
Exactly. Very good. I'm going to release these negative feelings. So this text is a good text. If a text does not succeed in making me feel these negative feelings, then it's a bad text, right? It is a bad text. Every text, according to Aristotle, must have this catharsis in it. Should be cathartic. Otherwise, it's not a good text. Just like Plato, who said, he said, every text should be didactic. If not, then it's a bad text. Okay? There's something very important. I have to mention this. Aristotle was Plato's disciple, Plato's student. But he agreed with Plato only partially. So when I say partially, it means there were things he agreed with Plato upon and things he didn't agree with Plato. What he disagreed about was how literature is useful. How literature can purify you. That is what he actually agreed with Plato. So Plato said, literature should purify you. How can literature purify you? This is what Plato said. Literature must purify you by planting morality in you, in your heart, in your mind. So when you teach a moral lesson to your audience will be better, will be purified. So Aristotle agreed with Plato on this point. He said, yes, literature should purify you. So he agreed on this point. they both, Plato and Aristotle, agreed that people must be purified. People must be moral, must do good things in life. People must not have negative feelings inside of them. They both agreed on this, that people should not have any negative feelings inside of them. People should be wise, should be moral, should be ethical, should do the good thing, should serve the republic. They both agreed on that. But they did not agree as to how this could happen, right? Plato said you can do that, you can make people moral and pure and good citizens by teaching them direct moral lessons. This is what Plato said. Aristotle said, well, he said, yes, you can do that. Aristotle didn't say, no, you should not teach people morality. No, he said, you can do that. But you can also do it another way. Not directly, but indirectly. How? By arousing these negative feelings inside of them, letting them feel them so they get rid of them, just like in catharsis. Are you following my point?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. You see, Plato, again, I'll repeat that or rephrase it. Plato said you can create good citizens by teaching them directly, morality. Teaching them morality in a direct way. Aristotle said, yes, of course you can do that. Aristotle didn't say, no, you should not teach people moral lessons. No. Yes, you can do that. But Aristotle offered another way. He said, yes, I agree with you. You can teach them directly, but you can also teach them indirectly through catharsis. Plato did not believe in catharsis. Plato only believed in direct morality, direct teaching. He said catharsis is misleading. Catharsis, according to Plato, is misleading. You cannot teach people through catharsis. Because, according to Plato, when you feel a negative feeling, it does not leave you. It does not, get out of your body. No. You are strengthening them. You're giving these negative feelings more strength, more power. Who said that? Plato, very good. He said, when I feel angry, if this play, if this tragedy makes me feel angry, then it is watering my anger. It's making my anger grow bigger and bigger inside of me. This anger will not leave me, will not get out of my body. It will grow inside. The more angry I feel, the bigger it will be inside of me, this anger. Who said that? Plato. Aristotle said, no. If this tragedy or this play makes me feel angry, this anger will fly away from my body, and my body will be pure. Okay? For Plato, no. Anger is a monster. And literature will feed this monster. And this monster will stay inside of me. It will never get out. Is the difference clear between Plato and Aristotle? Yeah, this is the bone of contention, as they say. This is where they both disagree. This is the point of difference between Plato and Aristotle. So this is the main difference between the didactic theory and the cathartic theory. Okay. So back to application. When we want to approach a text from a cathartic point of view, the problem we're going to face is, I said, if this play or this text makes me feel angry, scared, or sad, then it has fulfilled its function as therapy, as a cure. But notice my sentence. I said, if this play makes me feel, well, maybe it makes me feel scared or angry, but it would not make another person feel the same way, right? Because the response depends on the individual, not the text. Feeling angry, feeling sad, feeling scared depends on not just on the text, but also on the individual. So probably it succeeds in making me feel these negative feelings, but it's not going to have the same effect on another person. So what we need here is not just one person. It's going to be a subjective approach. We need more than one person. We need a sample, a big sample of readers. We have to check how this text makes people, readers, feel. How does it make them feel? Not just me. I'm one reader. We need like 100 readers to check their responses. If all of them in this sample, if all of them say, yes, we feel scared, we felt angry, then we have, we prove that this text has a cathartic effect. So analysis of the text is not enough. If you want to apply the cathartic theory to a text, then the analysis of the text is not enough, because you will talk about yourself, and you're just one individual. Research is science. Research is not art. Research is science. And when you write a paper, or a research paper, it should be based on science. Therefore, you cannot say, I feel this way. I feel you're just one individual. You need a large sample to prove it. Well, this means you have to make like a survey or a questionnaire in order to test the cathartic effect of this text on these individuals. Analysis of the text is not enough. You need to test the effect of the text on a sample of audience. This means more work, right? It's not like just writing a research paper on the didactic theory. It's very easy. You don't need to test it on anybody. All you need to do is to find a moral lesson there. But with the application of the cathartic theory is harder, more difficult, because it involves testing the audience. This takes more time, and it consumes, of course, more energy, more time, and more effort. So do you see the difference between the application of the didactic theory and the application of the cathartic theory? Which one is harder to apply? Which one is harder to apply? The didactic theory or the cathartic theory? The didactic theory, and the reason is because the cathartic theory should involve some kind of testing the audience's response to the text. That's why it's hard. Okay? Yes, please.
I have a question.
Yes.
So we can apply the didactic theory on almost all literature, all novels, but we can't apply the Cathartic Theory only on tragedies. Is that right? Like,
You can apply the didactic theory to
like Pride and Prejudice, but can I apply that the Cathartic Theory on that novel?
why not? Yes, why not? You can apply the moral theory or the didactic theory to any text. But your question is a bit tricky because let's divide literary works or texts into three categories. Let's divide all literary texts in the world into three categories. The first category is where the theory is applicable, easily applicable. So we have the first group of texts. We have three groups of texts. Group 1, Group 2, Group 3. Group 1 contains texts, literary works, which easily yield themselves to a specific theory. You can apply the theory very easily to this group. You remember the example I gave you, the Aesop's fable, the boy who cries wolf in the video, right? The moral lesson is very clear. The moral lesson is very clear. It's very easy to apply the moral theory to that. Group B, let's say Group A, Group B contains works, that do not easily yield themselves to theory. These works are a challenge for you. The moral lesson is not clear in these works, right? You have to read the text more than once to find the moral lesson. There is a moral lesson, but it's not very clear. So in Group A, the moral lesson is clear. In Group B, the moral lesson is not very clear. You need to struggle to find it. You need more time. You need to do more than one close reading of the text. In Group C, they simply do not yield themselves to theory. So you try to find the moral lesson there, but you can't. We can say you cannot apply the theory to these things. So you can easily apply the theory to Group A. You can apply the theory to Group B, but it's challenging. And you cannot apply the theory to Group C. I'm referring to the didactic theory, right? The same holds true for the cathartic theory. So you can apply the cathartic theory to Group A. You can apply it very easily. You can apply the cathartic theory to Group B, but with difficulty. And you cannot apply the cathartic theory to Group C. Now, these three groups, A, B, C, for the cathartic theory, are not the same as the moral theory. Every theory has its three groups of text. They're not the same. So, for example, you mentioned Pride and Prejudice. For the moral theory, you can put Pride and Prejudice in Group A. For the Cathartic Theory, you can also place Pride and Prejudice in group A. So for both theory, it's group A, because the novel yields itself to both theories easily. But if you take, for example, other theories, like let's say The Catcher in the Rye, okay, you might, for the Cathartic Theory, it falls in group B. But for the moral theory, it falls in group A. You see? These three groups, the three groups keep changing according to the theory. Sometimes you find every theory has its three groups of text.
Sorry, sir. My question is, the Cathartic theory is not focused on tragedy only. Like, we can use it on like happy feelings too.
The Cathartic Theory applies more to tragedy. Comedy, well, why not? You can apply it to comedy, but there's just one issue here. You remember we said the Cathartic Theory helps us get rid of what kind of feelings? Negative feelings.
What would you do? Sorry.
That's what's my question.
Yeah.
We can't apply.
May I? Why would you release good feelings? I mean, when you read a text, or when you have good feelings or positive feelings, just like what you mentioned, why would you release them? You want to release the negative energy thoughts. So that's why it's not applicable as I think.
Enjoyable. Because it's enjoyable, so we cannot apply the.
It's positive. We're really sorry.
Yeah, it's okay. Yes, that's right. Laughter is something good, right? Laughter is good. Grief is something bad. So grief is a negative. We classify grief as a negative feeling. We classify good sense of humor and laughter as positive feeling. Tragedy is mostly pessimistic, and pessimism is a negative feeling. Comedy is mostly optimistic, and optimism is a positive feeling. So that's why you can find all the negative feelings, you can find them all compiled where in tragedy more than comedy. That's why the Cathartic Theory is more effective when you apply it to tragedy. But, and that's a big but, it's a but with a capital B. Comedy, remember, also has negative, also arouses negative feelings. Because take Shakespeare's comedies. Now, Shakespeare's comedies do not only make you laugh. Shakespeare's comedies do not only make you laugh, they also have other themes, like the theme of revenge, right?
Yes.
There is, but you know, what makes it a comedy is the ending. Actually, we say, you know, what is the main difference between tragedy and comedy? A tragedy is a story that has a sad ending. A comedy is a story that has a happy ending. Now, sad for whom? Sad for the audience. Happy for whom? Happy for the audience as well. But we identify ourselves with the protagonists and the characters. So we feel what they feel. So if you take a comedy, the ending is happy. It ends usually with marriage and reunion. But if you take the beginning of the comedy and the middle of the comedy, forget about the ending. If you take the beginning of the comedy and the middle of the comedy, it's full of problems. There is revenge, there is hatred, there is hostility, there is intrigue, right? So we have negative feelings in a comedy, but eventually everything goes well at the end. At the end, we have a happy ending. So it applies also, you can apply the cathartic theory to comedy too, right? But it's more effective with tragedy, right? So comedy has many themes, like as I told you, Shakespeare's comedies are full of feelings like anger, revenge, intrigue, cheating, the love triangle. You know what we mean by the love triangle is when two men are in love with the same woman and they try to together they start fighting to get that woman. You can take the Merchant of Venice, for example. It's a very good example of how we have intrigue, we have these negative feelings, right?
Actually, John, tragedy
Yes?
is comedy. Is there a way to express a tragedy, tragic problem in a comedy way?
Yes, with a sense of humor.
Problem, you criticize or express a problem in a comedy way. So basically, each comedy contains a tragedy.
Yes. In every comedy you have tragedy.
Yeah.
And in every tragedy we also have comedy.
Yeah.
That's why we have the comic relief in tragedies, like the gravedigger scene in Hamlet is a comic relief. So it's actually a combination or a mixture of the two. So that's why we study more than one theory at the same time. And it becomes more useful when you apply more than one theory to the same text. Because the more theories you apply to a text, the more your understanding of that text is sharpened. You understand the text more by applying more theories to it. Because every theory looks at a text from a different perspective. There's this ancient Indian fable about the blind man and the elephant. Have you heard about it? It's an Indian story about blind men who come across an elephant, and they don't know what an elephant is. So they start feeling the elephant with their hands. They're a group of blind men. So one of them touches the leg of the elephant. He says, "Oh, this is a tree." Okay? Another one touches the tail of the elephant and says, "Oh, this is a rope or a snake." Another one touches the side of the elephant and says, "This is a wall." Okay? Another one touches the trunk of the elephant and says, "This is a spear, a weapon." Okay? So every man thinks that the elephant is something else. What's the moral of this story, if we approach it didactically? The moral of this story is that it all depends on your perspective. What you are looking at, from which perspective, from which angle you're looking at. It could be the same thing, but it could be viewed as different things depending on where you are looking at that thing. So a text like Pride and Prejudice, as you mentioned, a text could be cathartic. A text could be didactic, depending on what? Depending on which perspective you are looking at the text from. From the didactic angle, this text, Pride and Prejudice, teaches us a lesson in morality, a moral lesson. From a cathartic point of view, this text is a therapy. It helps you get rid of bad feelings. This is a good example of, I selected this example for you as Group C, Group C texts that do not yield themselves to theory. It's by Ezra Pound, 1913. It's a poem And the title of the poem is In a Station of the Metro. In a station of the metro. So it's a metro station. Let me read this poem. It says, the apparition, it means the shadows, of these faces in the crowd. Of course, the metro station is full of people, so they all have faces. So the apparition of these faces in the crowd, where are these people? In the metro station. And the poet is describing them. This is the first line of the poem. The second line is, petals on a wet black bough. Petals, just like flowers, on a bough of a tree. So a black bough, wet black bough. And that's the end of the poem. So it's a just two-liner. It's just two-line poem. Let me read it again. It says, the apparition of these faces in the crowd, petals on a wet black bough. How can you apply? Where is the moral lesson?
No moral lesson, no feelings.
No moral lesson, no feelings. There's not. What is this? You'll say, what is this?
Group C.
So you can place this poem in Group C, right? But this doesn't mean that it does not yield itself to any theory. No, it could yield itself to other theories, but not the classical theory. No, let's not say the classical theories, because next week and the week after we might apply to it, to this poem, the aesthetic theory, for example. Okay, but not Plato, not Aristotle. All right? Okay, well, thank you very much for attending this session, and I'll be seeing you next week. So thank you very much, and have a great day.